Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Photo Forward podcast, where we explore the stories behind some of the greatest visual storytellers in the world. From their photographic origins to finding work-life balance as creative professionals, to how to actually make a living as a photographer, videographer, or multimedia creator, we uncover what makes them tick and their shutters click. I'm your host, Ben Brewer. Work truisms. You hear them all the time. Follow your passion. When you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. Pardon my French, but I think that's bullshit. It's not that simple. That can take you down a dark path, all the while thinking that everything's just going peachy. As they say, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Let me explain what that means for the visual storytelling world. I'm not railing on, and I'm far from arguing against finding fulfillment in your job. What I do believe is that loving what you do, or making your passion your profession, can be kind of a double-edged sword. One that rears its ugly head in three big ways, in my opinion. Not being able to, quote, turn it off, work-life balance, or counterbalance, and you guessed it, burnout. Let's just dive right in. Let's say you work in the medical field as a doctor. Chances are pretty good that once you punch the clock at the end of the day or end of the week, you're able to comfortably detach from your business self. You're probably not diagnosing strangers you run into in your personal life, and you're likely not diagramming past or future procedures in your head in your free time. But as a photographer, that's damn near all I'm doing in my, quote, free time, if I'm not diligent about my mindset and headspace after my day job is done. And I'm not the only one. Case in point, how much I love the account Cinema Palettes for inspiration. You should check them out at Colors Effect on Twitter. It's great. Think about how ubiquitous photography has become in our daily lives. Even if we ignore the fact that each of us always has a fully functional camera in our pockets, every Instagram post, every ad campaign, every YouTube video is just one dot in a sea of visual communication. Visual storytellers see a well-shot commercial and think, which focal length are they using to get that perspective? Or, ooh, I love the way that portrait captures that subject's expression. What lighting setup or color temp did they use to make me feel something just there? I've honestly been asked why I seem distracted in conversations with friends before. Well, sometimes I might be just focusing on how the light is striking your face in just the right intensity, at just the right angle, with just the right background. And I can't help myself from wanting to pull out my camera and capture that exact moment the way it exists in my mind's eye. In short, I know personally I really struggle to turn it off in my everyday life. Because we care so deeply about what we do, oftentimes visual storytellers will make their passion their profession. And they love to feel that passion wherever we can. There's a prevailing wisdom that one should strive to lead a, quote, balanced life, where no particular part of your life takes over too much of any other. That sounds nice in theory, right? But treating all things with equal time and energy implies that everything in life or work has equal value, which is pretty clearly not true. This is the crux of a critical chapter in the brilliant book, The One Thing, The Surprisingly Simple Truth Behind Extraordinary Results, by real estate giants Gary Keller and Jay Papasan. The chapter is The Lie of Living a Balanced Life. It goes on to say, quote, unfortunately, living life in the middle guarantees that you won't be able to focus on what matters most. By trying to keep everything on level ground, nothing will get your full attention. The middle is mundane. It's one of the biggest flaws of a concept of a balanced life. We think we need to be in the middle at all times. What this philosophy doesn't account for are the moments when we need to step away from the middle in order to accomplish big goals. Things will naturally go out of balance when you're going after the things that matter most in your life. When your passion is your profession, it becomes necessary, not just recommended, to be crystal clear what your priorities and definitions of success in your life look like. and communicating it openly and voraciously to those in your life. Not only that, but because passion can be so encompassing and intoxicating, you have to stay vigilant and deeply aware that every facet of your life, mental health, physical health, relationship health, the list goes on. Because we care so deeply about what we do, that work-life pendulum will inevitably swing too aggressively to the work side. And there's nothing inherently wrong about devoting myself to my work, but when it becomes habitual and at the neglect of my other definitions of success in my life, it ceases to be a useful tactic. And now the one you've all been waiting for. The big one that almost every freelancer or solopreneur has had a run-in with at some point. Burnout. When the pot of not turning it off and poor work-life balance boil over, chances are pretty good that you'll find yourself face to face with a very real combination of exhaustion, frustration, and lack of creativity. And boy, does it hit hard and fast. Now, if you work in a more transactional profession, burnout is no less real. But the release valves for those feelings are a bit more obvious. Spend more time with friends and family to encourage a healthier support network away from work. Or hell, consider a change of employer to help find a better work-life management strategy. And all of that's well and good. But those strategies fall apart when you're a freelancer or an independent creator. Think about it. When I introduce myself and people ask what I do, I've only got one answer. Hi there, I'm Ben, and I'm a photojournalist. As a creative, what we do becomes who we are. And the flip side of this is that each day I spend not taking pictures becomes another day of literally questioning my identity. How can I call myself a photographer if I'm not shooting photos? How can I call myself a journalist if I'm not creating and discovering stories? Because our work lights us up and often becomes us, the very idea of taking time away from one's work as a creative becomes a self-defeating prospect. I might have more time to devote to my personal life, but at what cost to my identity? Note, I'll say here, this mindset around what you do becoming who you are is something I struggle with constantly, and I suspect I'm not the only one who feels this. While my attitude has oscillated on this over time, I'm currently of the opinion that it's a dangerous mindset to carry with you, and ultimately problematic when things don't go your way, as they often do. I'll leave my thoughts on this relatively brief. I think this deserves its own episode and greater discussion, but I wanted to ensure I touched on this in relation to those feelings of burnout. And secondly, I think about the other change of circumstance that traditional employees use to relieve these feelings of burnout. A change of employer or position within a company. Welp. As a freelancer, not only are you your own direct report, you're the CEO, CTO, and CFO all rolled into a small business turducken. In a brilliantly simple blog post from 2010, the marketing legend Seth Godin talks about this irony of the self-managed freelancer struggling with having the world's worst boss, parentheses, yourself. If you had a manager that talked to you the way that you talk to you, you'd quit. If you had a boss that wasted as much of your time as you do, they'd fire her. If an organization developed its employees as poorly as you are developing yourself, it would soon go under. Oof. How's that for a gut check? The truth hurts, but that truth has power. Because you know yourself better than anyone, whether you're a freelancer, solopreneur, or owner-operator, you must manage yourself as well, or better, than anyone else ever could. While stepping away from your freelance business to manage burnout is incredibly difficult, it's also critical because of the sheer level of responsibility as CEO, CTO, CFO, etc. that we're undertaking. So where do we go from here? Would I, knowing what I know now about the nature of my work and what it takes to be a visual storyteller, go back to high school and do it all over again? You're goddamn right I would. But I know that I can't get suckered into living an accidental life. A mindful, purposeful life is the only way when your work is your calling. Pursuing your passion as your profession, regardless of the field you're in, whether you're a visual storyteller or not, is fraught with mental, physical, and emotional hurdles. But for me, every ounce of struggle is worth every pound of joy. Enjoying listening to the Photo Forward podcast? Want to hear more thought-provoking, creative visual storytellers? Well, this is where you come in. We want to get the word out as wide as possible about Photo Forward and reach as many listeners as possible. And the best way to do that is through reviews and recommendations on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you consume your podcasts. If you want to support more deep dive conversations with photographers, videographers, and storytellers the world over, head on over to the Photo Forward page on iTunes and drop a review or even a rating. It means a ton to growing the show, and I personally read through each and every review to make this show the best damn visual storytelling podcast out there. So, as always, keep seeing, keep shooting, and keep putting your best photo forward. See you all soon.